Good evening and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Here's a look at what's coming up. After a 10-month standoff over abortion policy, Senator Tommy Tuberville is easing off of his hard line, holding up key military nominations. Why the Alabama senator is now backing off. Are America's top universities biased against Israel? The presidents of some of the most prestigious universities in the world are in D.C. today. Lawmakers trying to find out what's behind all the anti-Semitic incidents on their campuses. And should the U.S. border come before Ukraine? House Speaker Mike Johnson clashing with the White House over funding priorities. The question still persists, where is your tax money going next? Around 400 military nominees will soon be able to fulfill their new roles. After a 10-month standoff, Senator Tommy Tuberville now halting the appointments, trying to convince the Pentagon to change its policy which pays for service members to travel for abortions. Today, Tuberville is backing off. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports from the Capitol. So, Melina, why is the senator changing course on this issue?
Well, Steve, this comes at a time when Senate Republicans are really putting the pressure on Senator Tuberville here about the need for him to lift this hold on the military nominees, and at a time when Senate Democrats were just on the verge of holding a floor vote to temporarily change the rules so that they could go ahead and disregard whatever Tuberville was doing with these military holdups and go ahead and confirm those 450 military nominees. Now, Tuberville, for his part, said that he did this because he felt like this was the only opportunity he had to get the other side of the aisle to listen to why he says that the Pentagon abortion policy needed to be changed, and saying that although he didn't get what he wanted with that abortion policy change at the Pentagon, he was still happy because he says he feels like he was able to open some eyes at the very least. Now, keep in mind that although Tuberville did lift that hold on around 400 or so military nominees, it still affects a few people because he is keeping a hold on some of the top 4-star generals of those military nominees, and he says that that will impact around 11 people. Steve?
And so, Melina, over in the House, Republicans are gearing up for an official impeachment inquiry vote before the House. Today, the 3 committee chairmen leading the investigation efforts, holding another closed-door hearing with IRS whistleblowers. What's coming out of that meeting?
So the 3 committee chairmen who are charged with actually taking the lead on the investigation into the Biden family's foreign business deals say that they have their hands on new evidence from the IRS whistleblowers that we've heard from multiple times before committees, both behind closed doors and out in the public, that proves that the DOJ actually prevented those senior IRS investigators from asking about President Biden's potential involvement in his son's foreign business deals. Here's what one of those whistleblowers had to say after coming out of an hours-long closed-door testimony. Take a look.
Hunter and his associates provided access for wealthy foreign individuals located in Ukraine, Romania, and China in exchange for money to enrich a well-known political family. At the end of the day, it appears that the Department of Justice attempted to sweep everything under the rug.
Now, this argument that the DOJ is preventing them from looking into the potential of President Biden's involvement here in stonewalling their investigation is crucial because it's along the lines of the argument that House Republicans are now using to warrant why they say they need to authorize this impeachment inquiry into the president so that they can get the records that they need. Now, the White House has pushed back, saying that they have complied. They've provided thousands of documents from the Treasury Department to the committees who are investigating this. But Speaker Mike Johnson today said otherwise, saying that the White House is still preventing them from interviewing key witness testimonies who have been key witnesses that have been subpoenaed by Congress, as well as preventing them from getting their hands on some documents from the National Archives. Here's Johnson.
And the House has no choice, if it's going to follow its constitutional responsibility, to formally adopt an impeachment inquiry on the floor so that when the subpoenas are challenged in court, we'll be at the apex of our constitutional authority.
And Speaker Johnson says that they're going to be holding this impeachment inquiry vote into President Biden next week, where he says he's confident that in their slim majority, they do have the votes that they need to pass it. Steve?
NTD's Melina Wisecup reporting for us live from the Capitol. Thank you, Melina. Anti-Semitism on U.S. college campuses in the spotlight on Capitol Hill today. Lawmakers grilling presidents of America's top universities. This as Jewish students describe how their lives have changed since the attacks by Hamas. NTD's Ariane Pazdar brings us more.
I hear calls to gas the Jews, and I am told that Hitler was right.
Jewish students on Tuesday joining lawmakers for a press conference in D.C. They described what their day-to-day lives have been like since the October 7th attacks by Hamas. For example, when they're on campus, on their way to class.
I walk by mobs of people chanting "From the river to the sea," which is a call for the destruction of the state of Israel. Most recently, "We have you outnumbered," and "Globalize the Intifada." An intifada is an uprising, and the last two were marked by blowing up buses and restaurants.
And just a few hours after this press conference, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik confronted the president of Harvard about calls for a global intifada on her campus.
Does that speech not call for the genocide of Jews and the elimination of Israel? You testify that you understand that is the definition of intifada.
We embrace a commitment to free expression and give a wide berth to free expression, even of views that are objectionable.
You and I both know that's
offensive.
not the case. You were aware that Harvard ranked dead last when it came to free speech.
Stefanik went on to suggest that Harvard values free speech only when it's against Israel.
Isn't it true that Harvard previously rescinded multiple offers of admissions for applicants and accepted freshmen for sharing offensive memes, racist statements, sometimes as young as 16 years old?
The school's president responded by saying that such incidents took place before she assumed her current role. Now, in the end, the hearing didn't really bear much fruit. Committee members say that the presidents of the schools failed to condemn terrorism during the hearing, and that they instead opted to defend open discourse on campus. Ariane Pazdar, NTD News.
How do lawmakers on the House Education Committee feel about today's hearing? Are they satisfied with what the university presidents had to say? Joining us now with perspective, we have Congresswoman Julia Leto, who is also a member of that committee. Congresswoman Julia Leto, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
Of course, Congresswoman, President of Harvard, MIT, and Penn all on the Hill today to answer questions related to anti-Semitism on college campuses. Were you satisfied with the testimony you heard today?
I was absolutely not satisfied. And as a former educator and administrator in higher education, I was quite frankly embarrassed by their answers. You know, a lot of lip service was given today, a lot of condemnation for the events that have taken place on their campuses, but I didn't hear any calls to action. I didn't see that they're actually putting forward a plan to expel these students who did horrific acts on their campuses.
I mean, you would think, of course, I think we all place hope that college campuses would be in the hands of proper stewards of fairness and inclusivity. When asked if Israel had a right to exist, Harvard's president, Ms. Claudia Gay, failed to call Israel a Jewish state. Semantics or earnest in her response nonetheless?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we're dealing with. When a bunch of my colleagues asked questions, she failed to answer them adequately. And you're absolutely right. Every college student deserves to be able to walk across a college campus and feel safe. That should be our first priority as college presidents. And so I was quite frankly appalled with their lack of transparency and their lack of directness in the answers that they provided.
At the very least, do you hope that by having them testify in Capitol Hill will open the eyes to parents across the country?
Absolutely. You know, I've spent a lot of my time up here defending higher education. Again, I was an administrator, but today I lost a little faith in some of our institutions, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can get it back. But again, we have to expose university presidents that are not doing the right thing.
Congresswoman, switching gears just a bit here, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson from your home state, making it clear today to the Biden administration that there will be no aid to Ukraine without immigration reform. Is this something that you're on board with?
Absolutely. We have to be able to take care of our own border when we are also providing aid to foreign countries as well. So I think that that is a win-win solution. I'm very proud that he put that forward today.
And with a dwindling majority, with George Santos leaving the House of Representatives, being expelled for House Republicans, are you confident that the rest of the caucus will be on board?
I am. You know, I think all of us agree that we have to do something about our border. It is a humanitarian crisis. We have to take care of our own border as we are also looking globally what's happening across the globe.
And you know, the Biden administration has also been quite unequivocal on their end, digging in. Do you think the speaker will be able to ultimately get them to blink?
I do. You know, I have found Speaker Mike Johnson to be an honest, earnest man. He's strong in his convictions, but he's also kind. And I think that that is going to get him really far. And I'm hopeful that he can really work President Biden on this issue.
Congresswoman Julia Leto, thank you so much for joining us. House Speaker Mike Johnson insisting on an overhaul of border policy as the White House pleads with Congress for more Ukraine money. Joining us now live for the latest on that confrontation is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good evening, Iris. So what is the Republican speaker demanding exactly, and what's at stake here?
Good evening to you, Steve. So House Speaker Mike Johnson is staying firm in his letter to the White House on Tuesday, insisting that any more Ukraine aid is, quote, dependent upon enactment of transformative change to our nation's border security laws. He's also asking the White House questions such as what is the U.S.'s end game in Ukraine and how was taxpayer money, U.S. taxpayer money, exactly spent in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Johnson's strong-worded response comes after the White House on Monday urged Congress to pass additional aid to Ukraine, saying that the current money allocated to Ukraine is already running out. Meanwhile, the administration also invited Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to directly talk to lawmakers virtually on Tuesday. While he wasn't able to make it, he sent his delegates to talk to lawmakers today, but some Senate Republicans are still insisting that border remains a higher priority. Watch.
There's support for Ukraine, but there has to be security of our border. Yesterday, over 10,000 people came into this country. Today, another 10,000. This is a rate of 3.7 million a year. We have to stop that.
But some Senate Democrats who were also at that meeting told us that they echo the White House's message that if we don't send more aid to Ukraine, it's going to hurt democracy. Here's what they said. Watch.
And the historic consequences of abandoning Ukraine at this moment in time would haunt this country for decades. I mean, who would ever trust our alliances again?
The United States has already sent well over $100 billion to Ukraine since the start of the war. While some Republicans are asking the question on why we're not spending that money at home, including on our border, Senate Democrats are pushing ahead with a test vote on Wednesday on whether or not to approve President Biden's $100 billion emergency funding package, which includes some additional $60 billion for Ukraine. Back to you.
NTD's Iris Tao reporting live from the White House. Thank you, Iris. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.